3 days after my death, William received the call to identify my body. He casually tightened his arm around the woman sitting in his lap and spoke into the phone. If she is dead, she is dead. Cremate her and call me when it is done. My body was pushed into the roaring incinerator. Once I was reduced to nothing but bone and ash, the crematorium staff called him again. He clicked his tongue in deep annoyance. Got it. I am on my way. By the time William Schmidt finally arrived, 2 hours had already passed. His dress shirt was wrinkled and a glaring red lipstick stain marked his collar. It was incredibly obvious that he had just rolled out of someone else's bed. He found the staff member and sneered, "Where are Nora's ashes? Didn't you call me here to pick them up?" Once the worker confirmed his identity, he carefully handed over the wooden urn containing my remains. William took it with careless hands, his eyes swirling with pure mockery. Are these really Nora's ashes? You didn't just sweep up some random roadkill to mess with me. Did you? The worker looked horrified. Mr. Schmidt, these are absolutely the young lady's remains. I have the official logs. Would you like to see the paperwork? William let out a dark chuckle. No need. I believe you. I breathed a sigh of relief. I had no idea why my body was dead, yet my soul was still lingering around. I had thought about it endlessly, figuring it was simply because my remains hadn't been properly laid to rest. Now that William believed I was actually dead, I figured he would at least toss me in a grave somewhere. Even if he hated my guts, surely he would do it just for the sake of our past history. But my relief was violently cut short. A second later, William let out a fake, exaggerated gasp. The urn slipped directly through his fingers. My ashes spilled across the dirty tile floor. A cruel, twisted smile stretched across his face. My hand slipped, saying that he extended his foot, grinding the expensive leather sole of his shoe directly into my ashes. My phantom breath hitched in my throat. I stared into his mocking, dead eyes. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. It wasn't until my ashes were completely ground into the cracks of the floor, mixed with the everyday dirt and grime, that William finally pulled his foot back with a satisfied look, leaving the crematorium worker in absolute shock. William laughed. Make sure you pass a message on to Nora for me. Tell her this new little trick of hers is creative, but it is a massive failure. My mother's death anniversary is in a few days. She better drag herself to the cemetery and beg for forgiveness. Otherwise, even if she really is dead, I have no problem digging up her corpse and whipping it to pieces. His final words dripped with a freezing venom that would make anyone's blood run cold. And I knew he was entirely capable of doing exactly that. Suddenly, I felt a wave of twisted gratitude that my body had already been burned. The scene at the graveyard would have been utterly gruesome. Before the worker could even argue with him, William's phone rang. The strange thing was my soul was forced to follow him. Trapped by some invisible tether, I sat in the passenger seat of his luxury car, listening to him chat with the woman on the other end of the line. I knew that voice perfectly. It was Ivy Schmidt, the adopted daughter of the Schmidt family. Back when William and I were still madly in love, he had come to me privately demanding that I leave him. When I refused, she made it her mission to destroy me. She spread vile rumors at my workplace and even hired thugs to corner me in alleys. When William found out, he ripped into her. He threatened to kick her out of the family completely if she ever laid a finger on me again. That was the only reason she had finally backed off. Now, just hearing my name made William's expression turn ice cold. Why are we talking about her? It ruins my mood. It's not like she is actually dead anyway. But what if she really is dead, William? What would you do? Ivy's probing voice filtered through the speakers. My phantom heart clenched. I instinctively turned my head to look at him. If this had been the old William, he would have been sick with worry if I even got a paper cut. He used to tell me I was his greatest treasure, promising to hold me in the palm of his hand for the rest of his life. But now William just let out a cold, sharp laugh. Then I would throw a massive 3-day party and light up the entire city with fireworks to celebrate. I stared at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. It was only in this exact moment that I realized just how deeply William Schmidt hated me. He hated me so much that my death was literally a cause for celebration. But William, I really am dead. You just refuse to believe it. The car pulled up in front of an elite bridal boutique. William stepped out, striding toward the entrance with purpose. It reminded me of the day we had secretly gotten our marriage license right before he dragged me to a boutique just like this one. Back then, he couldn't wait to see me in a wedding dress. He had held me so tight, whispering that I was the most beautiful bride in the world. Now he was looking at Ivy with that exact same tender gaze. She was standing on the pedestal wrapped in a stunning white gown. He gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his voice softer than velvet. "You look beautiful." Ivy lowered her head with a shy smile. When she looked back up, her eyes were shimmering with happy tears. "William, I have waited so long for you." I watched in absolute horror as Ivy leaned forward and pressed her lips to his cheek. Every instinct in my soul screamed to stop them, but my hands passed right through William's solid chest. I could only stand there entirely helpless as he slid a massive diamond ring onto her finger. How could he do this? Why Ivy? Out of all people, she was the one who murdered his mother. "William." I screamed his name, my phantom throat raw and burning with absolute despair. I watched the rest of the fitting in a state of total numbness. Ivy stared at herself in the mirror, practically glowing with excitement. Suddenly, she turned to him. "By the way, William, is she okay?" We both knew exactly who she was talking about. William's face went completely blank, laced with a heavy dose of disgust. What could possibly be wrong with her? It is just another one of her pathetic little games. Should we send her an invitation to our wedding? William lowered his eyelashes, hiding the dark emotion swirling in his eyes. A twisted, malicious smirk slowly crept onto his lips. "Of course we will invite her. She is our guest of honor." The realization hit me like a freight train. William wanted to force me to watch him get married. After all, a proper wedding was the one thing I had always dreamed of because as his mother had never approved of me. We only ever signed the legal papers. We never had a ceremony. Over the years, having a real wedding had become my ultimate unattainable fantasy. And then his mother died, a massive heart attack that the doctors could not fix. On the night she died, her very last phone call was to me. Because of that, William naturally assumed that I had said something to trigger the attack. He fully believed I had killed her. On the day of her funeral, he dragged me to the cemetery and physically forced me to kneel in front of her gravestone. For an entire day and night. The rain was pouring down in sheets. We stared at each other through the freezing downpour. His eyes were dead, filled with an apocalyptic level of hatred. He told me, "From now on, Nora, I will make you wish you were dead." From that day forward, I went from being the love of his life to his sworn mortal enemy. He hated me. He humiliated me, but he flat out refused to let me leave him. He even started bringing different women home to spend the night. Whenever he saw my red, tear-stained eyes, he would just laugh, lightly slapping my cheek to mock me. "Does it hurt, Nora? You brought every bit of this upon yourself. Who else can you blame?" I tried so hard to explain the truth, but it only made him worse. He never once doubted his own conclusion because he knew exactly how much his mother despised me. She had sworn up and down that she would never let me officially enter the Schmidt family. William had fought with her constantly over it. Barely severing his ties with his own family just to be with me. But how could a man accept that the woman he loved had murdered the woman who gave birth to him? He couldn't. After putting Ivy in a cab, William seemed to suddenly remember I existed. He generously pulled my number out of his blocked list. Tapping his fingers against the steering wheel, he dialed my phone. A long minute passed. I watched his relaxed eyebrows slowly pull together into a furious scowl. He slammed his fist against the steering wheel, screaming into the empty car, "You are asking for a death wish, Nora. How dare you ignore my calls?" But he had no idea it wasn't that I was ignoring him. It was that I could never pick up a phone again. Half a month later, William finally returned to the house we used to share. He violently kicked the front door open, his voice echoing through the empty halls. "Nora, get your ass out here right now." He kicked open door after door, but he never found my shadow. His already grim expression turned pitch black. He barked orders at his security team to track me down, his voice dripping with lethal intent. "If she wants to run, she better run to the ends of the earth, because the second I catch her, I am breaking both of her legs." Yet the woman whose legs he wanted to break was floating right in front of his face. Few minutes later, his subordinates sent him a GPS pin. William's face morphed into something truly terrifying. I glanced over at his phone screen and realized the pin was locked onto Frank's house. Boss, the madam's last phone call was to Mr. Frank, but Mr. Frank claims he hasn't seen her. We suspect he is hiding her. William's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. Wait for me. He drove like a maniac, beating all the way to Frank's front door. With a dark, murderous glare, he started kicking the heavy oak door. 1 kick, 2 kicks. On the 3rd kick, the door swung open. Frank stood there looking completely dead. Inside, deep, dark bags hung heavily beneath his eyes. Can I help you? William sneered. You are hiding my wife in your house and you have the nerve to ask if you can help me? Frank's face remained entirely blank, like a man who had lost his final reason to live. I am not hiding her. She is dead. Didn't the crematorium call you to come pick up her ashes? She actually got you to play along with this pathetic script. Wow. It seems she is really desperate to hide from me this time. William still didn't believe I was dead. He stubbornly clung to the idea that this was just another elaborate game. He tilted his head back, screaming into the depths of the house, Nora, do not think for a second that Frank can protect you from my mother's death anniversary. I am counting to 3. If you do not walk out here right now, I will tear this place apart. 3, 2, 1. The second the countdown finished, William brutally kicked Frank in the stomach and ordered his men to tear the house apart. Frank fell hard against the floor. A flicker of raw rage finally broke through his dead expression. William, she is dead. You went to the crematorium and claimed her ashes yourself. Did you already forget? She is dead. She has been dead for weeks. Frank's roar echoed through the house. For the first time since arriving, William's expression cracked. Only for a second. Then his face twisted into contempt. Enough. He grabbed Frank by the collar and slammed him against the wall. I watched that woman fake illnesses, fake disappearances, fake tears. Now she's faking her death? Do you really think I'd fall for that? Frank laughed. It wasn't amused. It sounded broken. You still don't know. William frowned. Frank reached into a nearby drawer with shaking hands. One of the guards tried to stop him. William raised a hand. Let him. Frank pulled out a thick envelope and threw it into William's chest. It exploded across the floor. Medical reports. Police reports. Photographs. Hospital bills. A death certificate. The official cremation authorization. Even the receipt William himself had signed when he collected my ashes. William glanced down lazily. Then froze. His own signature stared back at him. The date. The time. The crematorium seal. His fingers slowly tightened around the paper. Frank's voice was hoarse. You really don't remember? You walked in smelling like another woman's perfume. You mocked her ashes. You threw them onto the floor. You stepped on them. You laughed. You told the staff to tell her to crawl out of hell and apologize to your mother. Every sentence landed like a hammer. For a split second, William saw it. The urn slipping. Gray ashes spreading across white tile. His shoe grinding them into the floor. The horrified face of the crematorium employee. He had been so convinced it was another trick. He hadn't even looked inside the paperwork. His breathing became uneven. No. Frank's eyes were bloodshot. You weren't there when they found her. William looked up sharply. What? Frank swallowed hard. They found Nora inside her apartment. There were signs she'd been struggling to breathe for hours. She kept trying to call someone. He held up my phone. The cracked screen still displayed the call history. 37 missed calls. Every single one. To William. My soul stared at the screen. I remembered. The crushing pain. The room spinning. Blood on the floor. My fingers shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. Call after call after call. Every one rejected. Blocked. Eventually. I had called Frank. He answered immediately. By the time he reached my apartment, I was already gone. Frank's voice cracked. Her last words were. He couldn't finish. William grabbed him. What did she say? Frank slowly looked him in the eye. She said. Tell William. I didn't kill his mother. Silence. Absolute silence. William released him. His hands began trembling. No. That's impossible. Frank suddenly exploded. You never even investigated. You decided she was guilty before the autopsy was finished. You never asked why your mother's final phone call lasted only 12 seconds. William blinked. 12. Frank threw another report onto the floor. The hospital extracted the call recording. William stared. His heartbeat thundered. Frank continued. Your mother called Nora. She only managed to say 4 words. He pointed at the transcript. William looked down. The recording read. Nora, save. Ivy poisoned. William's pupils shrank. Frank's voice became ice cold. Then the line disconnected. You blamed the wrong woman. You spent 3 years torturing the only person who tried to save your mother. Everything inside William stopped. My own memories flooded back. That night. Mrs. Schmidt's terrified breathing. Her panicked whisper. The sound of something crashing. The line going dead. I had rushed out immediately. But I arrived too late. William had already reached the hospital. He never asked why I came. He simply looked at me. And decided I was the murderer. Frank wasn't finished. The police reopened the investigation 2 weeks ago. They found traces of digitalis in your mother's bloodstream. William whispered. Digitalis. It wasn't a heart attack. It was poisoning. Frank nodded. And guess whose fingerprints were on the medicine bottle? Neither of them spoke. Neither had to. The answer hung in the room. Ivy. The woman William had just asked to marry him. The woman wearing the ring that should have been mine. The woman he had chosen over me. William staggered backward until his legs hit the coffee table. He collapsed onto it. His breathing became ragged. No. 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 For the first time since my death. William Schmidt looked truly afraid. William shot to his feet. Where is Ivy? Frank stared at him. Now you want to ask that? William ignored the sarcasm and ripped out his phone. His hand shook so violently he nearly dropped it. He dialed Ivy. 1 ring. 2. She answered almost immediately. William? I was just thinking about. His voice cut through her like a knife. Where are you? She paused. At home. Why? I'm coming. He hung up. No explanation. No goodbye. Frank watched him storm toward the door. You'd better pray she's innocent. William stopped without turning around. If she isn't. His voice was frighteningly calm. She'll wish the police find her before I do. 20 minutes later, William burst into Ivy's villa. She hurried downstairs in silk pajamas, smiling. You scared me. What happened? Without warning, William threw the investigation report onto the floor. The pages scattered around her feet. What is this? You tell me. She bent down. The instant she saw the toxicology report, the color drained from her face. It lasted less than a second. Then she forced a laugh. I don't understand these medical papers. William stepped closer. What about the fingerprints? What fingerprints? The ones found on the bottle that poisoned my mother. She blinked. I've never seen any bottle. William watched her carefully. Years ago, he would have believed every word she said. Today. He noticed everything. The tiny tremble in her fingers. The stiffness in her smile. The way she refused to meet his eyes. Ivy. His voice became dangerously quiet. Look at me. She slowly lifted her head. Did you poison my mother? Tears instantly welled in her eyes. William. Answer me. I loved Mom too. Answer. I didn't. He took another step. Then why did she call Nora instead of me? Why did she say your name before the line went dead? I don't know. William's eyes narrowed. I never told you what she said. The room froze. Ivy's lips parted. She realized her mistake too late. William smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man whose entire world had just collapsed. You knew. She backed away. I was just guessing. You knew. I guessed. You knew exactly what my mother said because you were there. She continued backing up until her legs hit the staircase. There has to be some misunderstanding. William took out his phone. He pressed one button. I've arrived. The front doors burst open. Several detectives walked inside. Ivy stared at them in horror. William never looked away from her. You wanted a wedding. You'll be wearing handcuffs instead. An officer stepped forward. Miss Ivy Schmidt, we're reopening the investigation into Mrs. Schmidt's death. We also have additional evidence we'd like to discuss with you. One detective placed a sealed evidence bag on the table. Inside was a small pill bottle. Another placed a flash drive beside it. We recovered deleted security footage from the Schmidt residence. Ivy's breathing became erratic. William frowned. Deleted? The detective nodded. Someone erased several hours of footage the night your mother died. We recovered most of it. He plugged the drive into the television. The footage began playing. Everyone watched in silence. There was Mrs. Schmidt in the kitchen. Moments later, Ivy entered carrying a tray with tea. She smiled warmly. Mrs. Schmidt drank it. Less than 5 minutes later, she collapsed. Instead of calling an ambulance, Ivy calmly picked up Mrs. Schmidt's phone. She deleted something. Then she walked away. Only after several minutes did she finally make an emergency call. William's face went white. No. The detective paused the footage. There's more. The recovered audio was enhanced. Mrs. Schmidt's weak voice played through the speakers. Ivy. What did you put? Then came Ivy's voice. Cold. Almost amused. You promised William would never marry Nora. So I made sure you kept your promise. I'll take care of everything from here. The recording ended. The silence afterward was suffocating. William stood perfectly still. His knees finally gave out. He collapsed onto the marble floor, staring blankly at the screen. Everything he had believed for the last 3 years had been built on a lie. And the person he had punished, the person he had destroyed, had been innocent all along. William didn't cry. He simply sat there on the marble floor, staring at the frozen image of Ivy on the television. One detective finally broke the silence. Mr. Schmidt, Miss Nora's case will also be reopened. William looked up slowly. My wife's case? The detective's expression hardened. Our preliminary investigation suggests Miss Nora didn't simply die of natural causes. William's eyes snapped into focus. What? Frank stepped forward and placed another file on the table. I didn't tell you before because I wanted you to hear everything at once. He opened the folder. Inside were crime scene photographs from my apartment. Bruises around my wrists. A broken coffee table. Blood beside the front door. William's breathing stopped. I never. Frank looked at him coldly. The medical examiner found injuries consistent with an assault. There were signs someone entered the apartment shortly before she died. The police have already identified fingerprints. William whispered. Whose? Frank answered without emotion. Ivy's. The room spun around him. Detectives continued. We also recovered deleted messages from Miss Ivy's phone. One message appeared on the screen. She's still alive. Don't let her reach the hospital. Another. William will never believe her anyway. Another. Once she's gone, everything belongs to me. William's stomach lurched. He suddenly remembered something. The day Nora disappeared. Ivy had insisted they leave for a weekend getaway. She kept distracting him. Every time his phone vibrated, she silenced it. His face drained of color. My phone. The detective nodded. We recovered your cloud backups. 37 missed emergency calls from your wife. They were automatically rejected because her number was still blocked. William covered his face. His shoulders finally began shaking. The first sob escaped before he could stop it. Then another. Then another. The CEO, who had never cried in public, completely fell apart. He slammed his forehead against the floor. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But apologies meant nothing now. I floated only a few feet away. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just emptiness. The detectives escorted Ivy away in handcuffs despite her hysterical screams. She kept shouting William's name. Promising she loved him. Claiming she had done everything for him. William never looked at her. After she disappeared through the front door, he remained on the floor for nearly an hour. Finally, he stood. Without changing clothes. Without eating. Without speaking. He drove straight to the crematorium. The same employee recognized him immediately. William's voice was hoarse. My wife's ashes. The worker looked at him with quiet pity. You scattered them yourself. William's lips trembled. There has to be something left. The employee slowly shook his head. We cleaned the floor that same evening. William stumbled backward. No. There must be. There isn't. You destroyed the last physical trace of her. Those words hit harder than any prison sentence. Over the following months, William abandoned everything. He cancelled the wedding. Resigned as CEO. Transferred every personal asset he owned into a charitable foundation under Nora's name. Sold the mansion. Donated every luxury car. The Schmidt board removed him permanently, citing his role in covering up evidence, intimidating witnesses, and interfering with investigations. Though he was never charged with murder, civil lawsuits and regulatory penalties stripped away much of the empire he had built. He stopped shaving. Stopped sleeping. Every night he replayed Nora's 37 unanswered calls. Every morning he listened to the restored recording of his mother's final words. It became his punishment. 1 year later, he returned alone to the cemetery carrying a simple bouquet. There was no grave. No urn. No ashes. Only a small memorial stone Frank had placed that read. Nora Schmidt. Beloved. Innocent. Gone too soon. William knelt before it until sunset. I finally know the truth. I believed the wrong person. I failed my mother. I failed you. And when you needed me most, I wasn't there. The wind carried away his words. There was no answer. My soul watched him one last time. The hatred that had chained me to him was gone. So was the love. He would spend the rest of his life remembering every cruel word he had spoken, every humiliation he had inflicted, every chance he had refused to listen. That was his sentence. Not prison. Not poverty. But waking up every day knowing that the woman he had loved most had died calling his name, and he had never answered. As the first rays of morning sunlight touched the memorial, the invisible tether binding me to William finally snapped. For the first time since my death, I turned away.